Asperger syndrome, now more commonly known as autism spectrum disorder, is a condition which can be hard to see and even harder to understand. Named after Austrian physicist Hans Asperger, some characteristics of Asperger syndrome include exhibiting poor social skills, odd speech patterns, and some other symptoms include becoming upset at any small changes in routine, inappropriate or minimal social interactions, and conversations that almost always revolve around themselves or a certain topic rather than others.
Hans Asperger was working kind of independently in Germany, so unsurprisingly, people in Germany and the US weren't talking all that much in the mid-1940s. And Asperger kind of identified a similar group of children who he was working with. These children had this or a similar pattern of reduced kind of social motivation and differences in their social kind of interactions with others, and often had an aspect of restricted or repetitive behaviours. What they didn't have so often was a reduced communicative kind of use.
However, if you were to take a closer look at history, you begin to uncover a very brutal and barbaric past for those who have suffered with the condition. One tied to the most horrific genocide known to man and woman.
The diagnosis of Asperger syndrome became more controversial as time went on, as it was identified that Asperger, in his kind of work in 1940s Germany, was partially, at least, identifying kind of children who were disabled, and then, you know, these kind of children being referred and reported to Nazi Germany and were more likely to be sent to concentration and death camps. And although there were problems about how you delineated autism from Asperger syndrome anyway, I think that was sort of the death knell for mainstream use of Asperger syndrome as a diagnostic label.
Many years removed from the turbulent times of the 1940s, we are now in 2023. So what are those who have the condition today? What is life like for them, either in the past or present? And more importantly, how do they see it themselves?
Well, the way I see Asperger's is that it's on the autism spectrum, but like it's less mild, it's high function. So it's like, even though you do have some problems with things like communicating and behaviour can be erratic, overall like you can still function like in the normal world, like even though I don't really like using the word normal, but like it doesn't stop you from like doing like everyday activities. But like I said, you still do have difficulties with a number of things. I started nursery at the age of 3, and it was clear like almost immediately that like I had like some condition that needed to be addressed. So I used to like push kids around. Like I'd snatch things off kids and never share. And yeah, there were some concerns there with me, like from a young age. So like I was lucky that I was diagnosed like at such a young age when I was 4, because it meant that I already had the additional support like from the early days in school. And I know there are people out there like that don't get diagnosed later on. And I can't imagine like the struggle of not knowing. So like, so it's good to know you have it like from that young age.
It is not just those who are diagnosed who are affected by the condition. As is often the case, sharing a home or having some form of relationship with a person with Asperger's can often be different to your normal relationship, as is the case with Christine and her son Kieran.
Some of the problems were the tempers, and knowing that there was something wrong and trying to get a diagnosis. And other problems were the frustration he had if he couldn't understand something, and it had an effect on his siblings. Well, sometimes it did feel like I only had one child, not 3, because he demanded a lot of attention. Whether it was negative or positive, it was just he wanted attention. and he'd do anything to get it.
People with Asperger's can be diagnosed as early as the age of 3. This means it can often be harder for younger people with the condition to make friends and fit in with other children.
He found it hard to mix. He'd just take himself off on his own. And he'd turn, instead of like, if he had like a truck or something, he wouldn't play with it normally. He'd turn it upside down and spin the wheels. He found it hard to play with other kids, so he'd be on his own a lot.
However, how obvious would something like this be to other children and people, whether it be in school or in public?
When they were young, as in like 4 or 5, no, they didn't really notice because they were only little themselves. But it started to get more noticeable when he was getting older in primary school.
And about high school?
High school, yeah, very, very, yeah, they had some silly things in high school. I was getting called up all the time because he was doing things which were just not right.
Bearing in mind the struggles of socialising for somebody with the condition, incentives such as this one, Liverpool Football Therapy, brings together those who suffer from a wide variety of conditions, Asperger's included, teaching them about the triumphs and falls of life through football. But do charities see something in Asperger's that we don't?
Particularly with Asperger's, I think, people with Asperger's commonly have a kind of like something that they're like hyperfixated on, or something that they're like really talented at. You see that generally across people who are neurodiverse in general, to be honest, that they would have what you call like a spiky profile, so that they would maybe be like below average in like a particular type of skill or a particular kind of like indicator, such as like communication or social skills or something like that, and then they would be really above average in like a particular area or with like a particular skill, and so yeah, that kind of like trend, and then also some of like the symptoms of being neurodiverse or having Asperger's, such as like a hyperfixation, can mean that individuals really put like a lot of time and effort and like passion into one particular area, that can mean that they're really, talented and like educated about a particular subject area.
Big businesses are recognising those with Asperger's more and more, as they believe they can be key players in their industry due to their unique capabilities. However, is it really recognition, or is there something a bit more selfish at the heart of it?
From like a talent and like skill perspective, I think a lot of like techie or like creative companies have clocked onto the fact that these individuals, because the way that they think is quite different to the way neurotypical people think, they're really good problem solvers, they're really good critical thinkers. They can kind of recognize like patterns or trends that other people may not. And obviously they're all, what I'm saying is like they're generalizations. Not all people with Asperger's are going to kind of have those particular skills, but more often than not they do. I think the kind of like tokenism thing about like just being some good PR, I think, with kind of like equality, diversity and inclusion, with that agenda now kind of like being, it's high on the agenda of a lot of companies. They want to have that good PR. I do think that it's sometimes a bit of a tick box exercise, but I do also think that a lot of big companies now do have a real focus on ED&I, because they've got to, because you can't kind of like, companies can't get away anymore with like not being inclusive, because we live in such like a data saturated world that like the data for the kinds of people the companies employ is like readily available to the public. So it's kind of a self-fulfilling prophecy, I think, with like actually being an inclusion meet and it being like a bit of a PR stunt.
Regardless of the intentions of multi-million-pound corporations, People with Asperger's have shown to be capable and valued individuals in day-to-day life, and from this, hopefully more and more people will begin to understand the condition behind the character. But what can and should we tell those who may be born with the condition in the future?
You ask what advice would I give to someone with similar conditions to me? It'd be to go out and connect with people. Especially like, even if you don't feel like it, like, if you want to improve it, you've got to put it into practice still. And just look to like, obviously not saying to stalk people, but like, get out your own way to like, just to socialise with people, like, even if it's a random person on the street, like, giving them a compliment on, I don't know, like, a compliment the clothes they're wearing. They say good morning, like, just as an example. And instead of like just focusing on the negative stuff, like, always like show gratitude like every day, because there's always a lot you can do, like, that'll make you happy. So yeah, my advice with people with Asperger's or even mental health conditions would be to like just try new activities. It can be uncomfortable at first, like, I know that from my experience, but it's worth it in the end. So yeah, like, that's it really. And anyone that struggles with anxiety or Asperger's, I just want to let you know that you're not alone, and there's always ways you can make it better. I know that from my own experience. So get out there and smash it.